Welcome to the land of Carnavia, a continent that is still recovering from the 10-year war with dragons and dragonkind known as the War for Land, Sky, and Water. That war ended 20 years ago. The land has known peace since, or at least the crime that has been committed has not been compared to the war. Our journey starts in Violet Hall, a beautiful town of white marble that got its name from the shade of violet that the entire town takes over during the sunset hours. In the middle of town, you will find a magnificent 20-foot tall fountain, which is the main focal point of the town. Separately, 4 people entered into the Serpent's Fang Inn and Tavern. We see the drow wizard Malthorin and the half-elf cleric Saren end up sitting at the same table. Malthorin on his adventure to learn necromancy, while Saren is on a quest to find valiant heroes to help out with some stuff back home. If we take a look at the bar, we will see a dragonborn ranger, Balasar, exploring the outside for the first time since the war ended, enjoying a nice meal and a nice cup of ale. And then what's that entering the bar? Is that a human? No! That is the tiefling rogue Dubagger, who is disguising himself as a human. We see Malthorin and Saren sparking up a conversation, Balasar finishing his meal at the bar and ordering another ale, and Dubagger on the dance floor trying to pickpocket some of the locals when screams fill the streets. The party makes their way out to find some creatures, gray-skinned, blue-veined, weird, only comparison to ghouls attacking the town. After quickly dispatching these creatures, the tavern celebrates as the rest of the night is spent partying at the Serpent's Fang Inn and Tavern. The next morning during breakfast, a couple of soldiers came to escort the party to the Lord's palace for their heroics the night prior. Lord Joshua Seth Carvin IV both thanks and congratulates the party for the work that they did the night prior for the town, and informed them that they found some tracks heading outside the city to the cliffside. He asked if they could explore it for a reward, of course. The party agreed and set out, not without negotiating some extra pay if they brought back some of the ears. As the journey starts, the party makes it to the giant lake right outside of Violet Hall, where they decide to spend a day to get to know each other and have a beach day, if you will. They play volleyball with a rock where Malthorin gets hit in the head and gets bruised. You see them use sand and rabbit skin to make a little hacky sack to kick around with each other. After making their way past the lake where the other side of the cliff is, they find some more of those creatures lurking about, signifying that they might just be heading in the right direction. Once again, dispatching these creatures rather quickly and collecting their ears for that extra reward. But then, the party comes across a dead end. Or so they thought. Walking up to a part of the cliff edge and making a really good Arcana check, Malthorin and Saren were able to find out that the wall was illusionary. It wasn't there. And as they head in, they find a cave. Completely smooth, unnatural cave. The party finds an opening into a room about 60 feet into the cave. There's a couple of tables and a chest in one corner, and in the middle lines a giant circle with runic signs scratched into it. As the party starts to investigate, Malthorin notices that this could potentially be a transportation circle. And then it starts to light. A blue. Very bright blue. After a blinding flash, the party finds themselves in a room with another one of these blue-veined creatures. but this one's a little bit different. We're looking at 8.5 feet tall. You can see some of the blue liquid oozing from its eyes. The party attempts to hide, but in a circular room with just 2 tables and a chest, there wasn't really a lot to hide with. Creature spots Balasar towards the entrance. We see Dewbagger and Saren by the tables, and Malthorin a little bit farther down the cave to get a little bit of distance in between him and the creature. As the battle commences, we see Balasar missing an arrow while Malthorin does immense damage with magic missile. The creature rushes forward and smashes Balasar off the top of his head. But from behind, we see Dewbagger running across the table, jumping to the other table, and then gesturing Saren to give him a boost. As Dewbagger leaps onto Saren's shield and tries to go for the creature's head, we see a little bit of a struggle on Saren's end to get him the push off he needed. So instead, Dewbagger clings onto the back and just starts hacking away. Saren joins the flank, summoning his spiritual weapon, which is a beautiful scythe. After getting a few more hits in, the creature, angered and surrounded, swings around, throwing everybody away and doing hard damage to them. But that did not stop them. They relentlessly continued the attack and brought the creature down. Continuing their investigation of the room, Malthorin goes ahead and deactivates the magic circle. Dewbagger opens the chest to find some gold and a couple of scrolls of Misty Step. Saren finds a couple stacks of paper on one of the tables and goes and sorts through them, in which he finds a letter and reads it to the party. Saren made a connection to this individual's time with these experiments and the weird stuff that's been happening in his hometown. Saren reveals this to the party and talks about Edenfell, a grand elf wizard who shielded the town of Astrafel during the war. The party heads back to Violet Hall and turns in their bounty for a reward. There was a conversation about the contents of the letter. Once Astrafeld got brought up, Lord Joshua Carvin mentions it lines up from when the communication from the town got cut off. Multiple envoys have been sent into the Fangbreath Forest, but none have returned. Saren then states that he is from the town and explains that there is a magical fog over the forest, keeping people from getting into the town and from people leaving the town. He only got out because of some divine intervention. Saren announces that his quest was to find capable fighters to bring back with him to help bring the town to normal, in which Malthorin questions if they are capable, and Saren assures them that they are. The party then heads back to the Serpent's Fang Inn and Tavern, turning down an offer to dine and stay at the Lord's Keep. The party drunkenly comes up with their team name, the Remnants. As the night goes on, Malthorin has a little bit too much to drink and passes out, being carried and tucked into bed by Saren. Outside, we see Balasar spending time at the fountain, which is his favorite part of town. Dewbagger heads to bed himself after doing a little bit more pickpocketing around the partygoers. The next morning, the party stocks up on a couple of potions and some fire arrows and heads out to the Fangbreath Forest. Now, the trip itself, quiet, until the night that they reached the forest. They were just about a quarter of a day out from reaching the forest, doing their night shifts, when, during Saren's watch, he looks over to the forest where he sees a figure in the fog. Trying to get a deeper look, he recognizes this shape to be his childhood friend Roland. Saren wakes the party up and rushes them to continue. Luckily, he was the last shift, so there was no exhaustion to the party. Entering the forest with the magic fog, the party stays diligent to stay together. After making some incredible survival checks, Saren definitely leading the way, as he has been here all too many times. After a little bit of time, they hear some wolves howling in the distance and the sound of a blast. The party rushes to investigate the sound, and Saren and Malthorin finds a pack of wolves, but Dubagger and Balasar are nowhere to be seen. While looking at the pack, they notice one of them is badly injured. As they look around for a second, they see a thin, malnourished half-orc in the tree. As the battle starts, we see the half-orc shoot at the wolves with some gaseous ball of energy, then jumps off the tree. After a couple rounds, Balasar and Dubagger make their way to the fight as they help dispatch the wolves. The half-orc, cautious, introduces himself as Sabis. He explains he was in a cave not too far from here with a friend and a random figure, and starts to break down as he explains that the friend's hand got cut off and was teleported away with the figure. Saren, Malthorin, and Balasar are taken to the cave and go to explore, while Dubagger keeps his eye on Sabis, as the party doesn't fully trust this person yet. The cave explorers find a similar room like the one that they were just in, but this time without a teleportation circle. All that they find are a couple of cages, some notes that they can't make out, and a hand. Leaving the cave and meeting up with Dubagger and Sabis, they have a conversation with Sabis as he agrees to join them until he can get his friend back. The party then reached the town of Astrafeld with their new ally. A town once bright and vibrant, now foggy, lifeless, and cold. The party looks around at the wooden houses that are made in and on top of trees. Sabis starts to walk around and sets off a trap. A rope ties around his feet and he is lifted off the ground. Townsfolk with swords and bows reveal themselves and commanding the party to not move. As Saren starts to speak, a figure steps forward, taking off his hood and revealing himself as none other than Saren's father, Therian Eris, a full-blooded elf holding a short sword in his hand. As they embrace and some other townsfolk go to help Sabis down from the trap, the party is filled in on what has been going on in town. The same creatures that the party has been fighting are also in the town. The town has been coming up with the idea to make a full assault onto the tower, because if not now, when? As the party starts to head off to talk a little more privately, a couple of other townsfolk approach the parents of Roland and ask about their son. As Saren explains how they got separated in the forest and he hasn't seen him in almost a month, the mother breaks down and they both walk off. The party is taken to the cellar of the Eris family. There they are greeted by Saren's mother, Mira, his sister, Lila, and his other childhood best friend, Nira. As Saren enjoys a family reunion, they look at a map and talk about what's been going on since Saren has been missing. Sabis heads to bed, exhausted out of his mind, but not after revealing that he doesn't know about the war. But why? The party heads out and talks amongst themselves after that and don't really know whether they can fully trust him yet or not. But after the breakdown when they first met him, Malthorin and Dubagger deem him crybaby. Rude, I know. The party heads back inside where the conversation of the plan continues. They are told that there are some scouts making their way around the tower, trying to look for any easy way of entry other than the front door. and that they should be back tomorrow, where they will devise a plan and set forth for the assault. The party gets their night's rest, and Saren enjoys a good night's sleep back in his own bed. When the morning comes, they are greeted with eggs, meats, and ale, as Lila, Saren's sister, stops by to have a conversation with Saren about her worries of their parents, as they have been emotionally and physically and mentally drained since all this started. Saren comforts his sister and let her know that they will do what they can to help out. As the party gathers and has some breakfast, Sabas isn't wanting to wake up, so the rest of the party with Nira heads out to check out the town. They head to the outer wall of the tower, about a good 80-foot gap between the wall and the tower, as they look up to see a gigantic wizard tower with a glass dome over the top. Within the 80 feet between them and the tower, they see many of the blue-veined creatures. The party then finish with Saren giving them somewhat of a tour of what was before this all started, and they head back in as they receive news that the scouts have returned. The party heads back to the cellar, where they are greeted by the two scouts, who turn out to be Roland's brother and sister-in-law. As they go through the situation of the tower, they reveal that the only way in is through the front, and that they need to make a frontal assault. The discussion then heads to the party and what they plan to do. And with Saren being as close to Edenfell as he was, and his whole personal quest was to bring back these adventurers turned friends to help out the town, the plan is for the party to make it to the tower, make it inside, while the townsfolk deal with the creatures outside. Sabas wakes up and joins the party for the discussion, as he reintroduces himself afterwards to them and seems to have a more business-driven demeanor on him. As the party and the townsfolk head out to the outer wall for the tower, Lila goes and picks the lock, and we see townsfolk turning into bears, turning into tigers. We see some of them across the walls shooting spells out onto the battlefield as they rush in. Our party's main goal is to make it to the tower and get in without having to do any fighting at all. And as the party goes through, with Malthorin casting cantrips to try to distract the creatures, and Dewbagger with his great acrobatics making it to where he is not being stopped by the creatures diving at him, and Saren giving direction, they make it to the entrance, spending a little bit too much time trying to lockpick a unlocked door. The party makes it into the tower, where they are greeted with 2 transportation circles, at least 3 times the size of the one that they found in the cave prior. They make their way up the stairs from that floor to the second floor, where they find a library. The library is different than what Saren remembers. There's a lot more books, and there's no stairs to continue upward. As the party finds a note on the table in the library that reads, "There are 3 books to open the door to the next floor. A story of possibility, a story of lost knowledge, and the book of mystery." As the party starts their investigation, Saren is quick to find a book that talks about possibility. As they open up to read it, it tells a tale of Saren. It goes through his life as we know it until he becomes devoted to a god. By that point, Edenfell becomes enraged. Chapter 2 is about what could have been, where we see a future Saren where he denounces his goddess and joins up with Edenfell in his journey. Together, they control and consume the world. There is a picture of an undiscovered land that only Sabas recognizes. And the last page of this chapter shows Edenfell sitting on a throne with a shadow figure on his left with purple eyes. And on his right, we see Saren, but a twisted version of himself. The final chapter talks about what will be, as it follows Saren's journey to Violet Hall, meeting his companions, heading through the forest and back into the town, where the story leaves off at the top floor, with all of his companions dead around Saren, and Edenfell and that shadowy figure showing up again, as Saren is on his knees, about to die. While looking around on what could be the story of lost knowledge and a book of mystery, Malthorin finds a book about time magic, and he's like, well, this hasn't been talked about in generations. As he opens it, it turns out to not be one of the books, but a trap laid for him. Malthorin relives one of his darkest memories when he was running away from his cult once they started performing acts of necromancy that he did not agree with, and being chased out and hunted by people he used to think that he could call friends. As the book shuts, Malthorin just sits in silence. Sabas finds a book as well and opens it up, successfully making a save, so this trap had no effect. Then the party finds a book about a lost land that details a land long forgotten in Carnavian history, showing the continent of Davonmere, a land home to all walks of life and depictions of races that have not been seen in Carnavia. The story goes to describe a young Edenfell and his early days of magic roaming the lands, and it shows him with his own adventuring party. There's a dragonborn, a tiefling, a Goliath, and a full orc accompanying the elf wizard. It shows the party in what seems to be a dragon clan village, as they are asked by the leader of the clan to set forth north, as there is unclaimed land that we need to explore. On the boat ride, there is a betrayal like no one expected. A dragon assault on the boat. As Edenfell's party tries to defend themselves, Edenfell looks over to see the yellow dragonborn, his own party member, slaying the rest of this party, as a rush of fire brings down the boat, and Edenfell getting swept away in the currents. Washing up on foreign shores, what the party knows to be the shores of Pondashali down south, Edenfell walks for days until he reaches a forest. The last page of this story shows the tower that they are currently in being built and the shadowy figure with the purple eyes. Shortly after, the party ends up finding the third book, which just seems to be a map of the Fang Breath Forest with figures walking around. Now, going outside of the story for a little bit, I wanted to make a puzzle that was both in character and IRL, because this is an online game. It's kind of hard to make up stuff to do together when it's over a call. I was originally thinking of making it just, oh, where's Waldo, as that makes the most sense as you're looking at a forest full of people trying to find one person. Then it occurred to me that both Malthorin's player Travis and Saren's player Marcus are both red colorblind, so that immediately was not going to work. So I found an alternative, as you see on your screen, and the party had to look for the panda in this picture. I'm going to highlight the panda now so you know where it's at. It took the party about 6 or so minutes, which is kind of impressive, but also I'm glad it didn't take like less than a minute. So I take that as a W in my books as a DM. As the party finds a figure in the forest holding a gold key and they point at it, the figure seems to grow bigger and bigger as it pops out the book and lands in front of them. The cloak is taken off as Roland is standing in front of the party. Confused and scared, Saren tries to comfort his friend, but it seems like the forest hasn't been all that nice to Roland. He starts claiming that this is another one of the visions and this is just another means of making an example of him as he rushes Saren and dives his dagger into Saren's stomach. As the party separates and tries to figure out what's going on, we see Saren casting the hold person spell with the dagger still inside of him. Roland takes this opportunity to try to get an attack off. But as the spell takes effect, his second dagger stops about half a foot away from Saren's eye. Dewbagger comes up from behind and grabs him. They notice a magical essence around Roland's eyes as he blinks and it flickers away. Saren lets go of the spell and Dewbagger lets go. Roland embraces and apologizes to Saren and explains that he has been living for days, months, years. He can't tell the time anymore, but every moment was him inevitably getting killed off by Saren in multiple different ways. As he goes to explain that the book, the forest, the people around, that is the forest that they were just in not too long ago. As Sabas goes on to say that it must be some kind of scrying magic illusion, that the book is a way to scry on the people inside the forest. Roland starts to move some of the books and bookshelves to cover up the stairway just in case some creatures come through the portal, and tells the party that they should head up because he is not in the right mind to take on or even look at Edenfell. Saren promises that this time he will come back for him, and they get ready to move on to the next floor. And that is where we will pick up in the next session of the Reclamation.
I'm gonna shoot it with a normal arrow.
Oh!
Okay. You know this to be Edenfell's bedchambers.
Why do I know that? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, because he's joined them a few times, you know. Well,
Wow.
No.
Getting ready to nom on me, right?
Yeah.
Seems pretty reasonable. All right, I'd like to fireball inside of its mouth.
Fireball.
Yeah.